Welcome to the Women in the Arena podcast, a platform dedicated to honoring America's women veterans who dare greatly in all aspects of life. I'm your host, Sarah Scully. At Women in the Arena, we harness the power of storytelling to illuminate the human experience. Through authentic narratives, we honor the resilience, authenticity, and leadership of women who have served our country. Our name, Women in the Arena, pays homage to Theodore Roosevelt's legendary speech, The Man in the Arena, recognizing the remarkable contributions of women in traditionally male-dominated domains. Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Women in the Arena podcast. Today, we're honored to host Vineta Kleine, Head of Communications for NATO's representation in Ukraine and a Latvian Army veteran. Vineta is passionate about advocating for and sharing the stories of Ukrainian people, particularly the courageous women supporting frontline efforts and fighting for their nation's freedom amidst the ongoing war with Russia. As this conflict continues to evolve, please note that new developments may have occurred by the time you hear this, underscoring the importance of these timely conversations. We hope this episode is the first of many capturing pivotal moments in our world and amplifying the voices of women shaping them.
Okay, here we go. Well, Vineta, welcome to the Women in the Arena podcast. We are so excited that you're here. This is a very special episode. We normally record in person, but the reason we're not is because you're all the way around the world. So tell us where you're recording from right now.
Sarah, it's great, to join you this conversation. Many thanks for inviting. Right now I'm in Brussels, and in a couple of days I will be traveling back to Kyiv, so where I'm based now, because I'm part of NATO representation to Ukraine. So, and I'm responsible for all communications related, just engagements and issues. So, and I'm part of NATO there in Ukraine.
Awesome. Yeah. So bouncing around, primarily stationed in Ukraine, but currently on a trip to Brussels. So you're always all over the place. So it's pretty special that we were able to make this happen. And when we connected, I thought you would be such a incredible addition to our podcast for the work that you're currently doing, and your background in history and military service, and then additionally the issues that you are passionate about, which is bringing a voice to the people of Ukraine. You are very, very passionate about women's issues in Ukraine, and so much of that just centers around what we here at the Women in the Arena podcast are passionate about as well, which is amplifying important issues around the world, amplifying the people who are tackling those issues, and also shedding light on the stories of women. So before we get into the work that you're currently doing and what's going on right now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you eventually entered into public service and into some of the spaces that you did?
I grew up in Riga, in Latvia. I come from there, and I don't know why, but since I was a little girl, I was always interested in the military or in war topics. So it's difficult to explain why, but I was watching war-related movies. So and when I grew up, I chose a different path. I decided I would study ancient language, like ancient Greek and Latin, and that is what I did. And after graduating from university, it turned out that I joined as a military. I joined as a press officer. And why I'm so passionate about women in the military, maybe it's also part of my experience, because when I joined the army, and because of my petite size, I went to a tailor who made like a field uniform tailored for my size and for my body. And I think at that point I was also thinking, that the military traditionally it's like a men's world, but women are huge contributors. So, but also we also need to create like a circumstance or environment for women that they can contribute with their skills, with their experience, with their knowledge, but that they can do it in the best way. So and that's why I'm also such a big advocate for equipment and also for uniforms which are tailored for women, so that women can fulfill their duties professionally, and that they look smart, so and that they what they do they can contribute to the best possible way. Yeah.
What did you love about military service? What was your favorite thing about it?
I really enjoy that it's the environment where which helps also you do your best, or just to which empowers you, and also I like this engagement or partnership with colleagues, and the way that it's about what you do, it's about what you deliver, it's about your service, it's about your skills. So, and it's also about a brotherhood. So I would say I really, and I like that also in the military rules are clear. So it's also just there's order, but there's always a space for you also to raise your voice and then just to be heard and also to be seen. So I think that's and it's about also a duty, and it's about serving your country and then serving serving the values you believe, you trust.
I love that. I definitely feel the same way, having the clear guidance, clear mission, clear purpose, and then just the sense of service too. So after your military service, what did your career look like? What happened next?
I was in the military, and then I went to Greece to study modern Greek language. And when I came back, I joined the Ministry of Defense, Latvian Ministry of Defense, and also as a spokesperson. And then I decided that I want to get a wide experience, or to get an international experience. So and just things work out that I went to the Western Balkans, to Kosovo, where I worked as public relations advisor to the Ministry for Kosovo Security Force. And that also gave me an exposure to this international environment, so where I could work together with colleagues from other armed force, from armed force of other countries, and also there in the Balkans, I also wanted to make sure that women who were serving and who serve in the Kosovo Security Force, that they are heard, that they are seen, and we had several joint projects just also to make them heard, and also to make society aware of their service, of their contributions, of their how they are contributing to their country. So, and that's why that was an amazing experience, and I was very glad that I could work together with women in uniform. So, and also could help them to be more visible. So, and also to make their voice heard.
That's amazing. So let's talk about now. The last few years you've been based out of Ukraine. Tell us about what your role with NATO looks like in Ukraine and what your current job entails.
In it was September 2020. I joined the NATO representation to Ukraine. We were working, and we are now working on informing Ukrainian society about NATO-Ukraine partnership, about all the cooperation and support aspects. And we are engaging with Ukrainian civil society, academia. We work closely with Ukrainian journalists and also independent journalists. So it's and especially this work is especially important during Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So that because there are so many mechanisms and also tools and platforms through which NATO supports Ukraine both politically and practically. So, and it's very important that Ukrainian society is aware that we are in close contact with both with the Ukrainian government and civil society, and there is a huge support for NATO and Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration. And we also working on consolidating this support, and it's very important that we are on the ground, and that we on a daily basis engage with both with Ukrainian government and civil society and media.
Wow. So tell us what it was like being in the role that you were in and witnessing the Russian invasion, because the conflict with Russia has been pretty steady and consistent for particularly the last 10 years, but you've watched the country flip into true war and true chaos. So what was that like, seeing that happen and watching that play out in the role that you were in?
You know, since of course, February 24th, it was for many of us, it was like a turning point. And however, Russia already illegally occupied Crimea and also part of the Donbass back in 2014. But the full-scale invasion of Ukraine that mobilized all of us, and I'm also observing how consolidated and how determined is Ukrainian society, are Ukrainians. And I'm also on a daily basis engaging with Ukrainians, and I'm also observing how and admiring how Ukrainian women are contributing. And in Ukraine, more than 1 million people, they serve in the military, and about 68,000 of them are women in the armed force. So, and on top of that, there are also around 5,000 women who serve in the National Guard and 8,000 in the bodyguard service. And there are also women in special force of the National Police on the front line. And we see that women have been on the front lines of Russia's war on Ukraine already for quite many years, and women are also humanitarian actors. They are community leaders and providers for their families. And since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, women have been providing humanitarian assistance, advocating for women's rights, taking on leadership roles in business and in politics. And as I already said, many have joined the armed force. And what I see, it's very important that women are heard, and it's essential that they are also appreciated, and that their contributions, hardships, and unique perspectives, they are invaluable. And recognizing their voices ensures a stronger and more inclusive force. Ukrainian women actively participate in the defense of Ukraine's territory and represent Ukraine's resilience, and that is what we all admire. And they fight alongside men. They take care of children and the elderly. They take on new roles to ensure the survival of their families and communities. And they love their country as much as their men do, but they are not as visible when it comes to communicating the resilience and resolve of the Ukrainian people. And it's very important that also Ukrainian women they are part of this of Ukraine and its fight and its future. And it's also important that when fighting finally stops, women are also at the negotiation table, and that they help direct the post-conflict rebuilding process, and that they also decide on the priorities and needs of all Ukrainians. And maybe that's why I feel it also as my duty that I speak about those women who are on the front line, and for all the sacrifice and everything what they are doing. And it's like it's a joint force, and it's a joint effort, because I know that they are engaged in so many roles, and they are fantastic in what they do.
Wow, thank you for that. It's so powerful. And one thing that we love doing here at the podcast, and one of the reasons that we interview women who are around the globe, is that we often see, I mean, the Russian invasion has been all over the news for the last few years, but sometimes in the headlines, we forget about the people who are there and the people whose lives are truly being affected by the devastation of war and its after effects. And oftentimes the stories of women are severely overlooked. And there has been some recent reporting. There was a recent story by the BBC about the women in Ukraine who have stepped up and been in kind of the shadows, stepping up to these leadership roles and having to fill the gaps because of the casualty rates that are happening on the ground. And you know, those women are called ghosts because they're often unseen and maybe not honored or known as much as their male counterparts. And it's really powerful hearing the stories of those women who are in the shadows, making history, making change happen in their communities. But the problem that is born out of that you just said is that, you know, when all is said and done and the conflict is over, those women need to stay at the table and help to make decisions and have their voices heard, because they're just involved in, you know, those events as men have been. And that's the importance of women, peace, and security initiatives, is having women at the table and having women involved in conversations about national security and about building their countries and making sure that they're not overlooked in those conversations. Do you have a particular story of a woman or a group of women that you've met that was particularly inspiring to you in your work that you've been doing?
Maybe we'll also go back to your mentioned women who help hunt down Russian drones, and there was also a story on the BBC. By the way, yeah, many women serve, and many women choose to serve either as medics or drone pilots. And there is also the school of pilots and it's the world's first school for female drone pilots, by the way, and also established in Ukraine. But and there is an interesting story about women who call themselves witches of Bucha. And those are almost 100 women aged 19 to 64 who are volunteers in part-time military service in air defense units outside of Kiev. And each Bucha witch is trained to handle assault rifles and machine guns to shoot down Russian drones. And then we can ask why Bucha witches. And I believe that some of our listeners also have heard about Bucha. It's a city outside Kiev, which in early 2022 was occupied for 33 days by Russian ground force. And during those 33 days, Russian soldiers, they committed atrocities that captured the world's attention. And to find solace and fulfillment, dozens of women signed up to become a Bucha witch, and now they help also Ukrainian military to hunt down and shoot down Russian drones. And as I already said, those women, they are volunteers. And during day, they either they are like office workers, or they are teachers, or one of the women she works in a beauty salon. But then in the evening and at night, they take off their high heel shoes, and take in their hands, machine gun, and just to shoot down Russian drones. So I really find this story amazing, and I'm in touch, for example, with Ukrainian gender advisors, because it's also a big part of what Ukrainian military is also focused on, because Ukrainian military, they are also very much focused on the implementation of the women, peace and security agenda. And Ukraine, like NATO, recognize the vital roles women play in peace and security. And we know well that peace and security efforts are more sustainable when women are equal partners in the prevention, the management, and resolution of violent conflict. And on women, peace and security in particular, NATO is supporting Ukraine in two major directions. One direction is the delivery of military equipment, which is tailored for female defenders. And the second direction is a long-term training scheme on women, peace and security for Ukraine's defense and security sector. So, and why also why gender advisors are so important for Ukrainian armed force, because actually women have served in Ukraine's armed force since the country declared its independence from the Soviet Union back in 1991. But then they were mainly in supporting roles until the beginning of the war in 2014, because the war in Ukraine didn't start in February 2022. It started back in 2014. And since 2016, women are serving in combat roles, because before then combat roles were not open for women. But in 2022, all military roles were open to women. And also the age limit on women serving in the military was raised from 40 to 60. And service women who reach the age limit are now transferred to the first category reserve as opposed to the second, meaning an increase in their pension pot and the chance to be mobilized first if needed. So there are big changes, and there are also like women foundations or women organizations who are also actively advocating for increased role for women in the military, that decisions and also like when operations are planned, that women at the decision-making table, and that their also opinions and their perspectives are also taken into account. And myself, I'm also I'm observing these changes also in Ukrainian society, how Ukrainian society is also gradually opening up and also accepting women in the uniform, which wasn't a case back even a couple of years ago. And we also, public opinion surveys also show that society is more and more in favor of women in the military. And since military service in Ukraine, it's for women is on a voluntary base. And also, a colleague of mine told me that 20% of all those who volunteer and who decide to join the military on a volunteer base, the 20% of those are women. So, and this number is increasing each month. So, because women understand, they think, what could be a way they could contribute to their country and what they can do also. And it's not about a wish, it's about a sense of duty, and it's out of necessity that women join the military in most cases.
Right. There's so much amazing words that you just said and things to unpack here. And I want to first just start with the story of the witches, the women that are volunteering in the background, with their full-time jobs and lives going on, and then at night kind of stepping up to serve and doing this amazing work in the background. And I think it's so fascinating because a lot of times with global conflict, there are these kind of not secret but not as well known groups of women who will band together in communities and step up and join a cause and fight for their country. And it's so fascinating because they're often doing it in the shadows because they still have to lead their regular lives and go to work or be mothers or take care of their families or do whatever they need to do. And it's just so fascinating because they're not just contributing, but contributing in a way that is turning the tide of the war, because we know that drones are one of the biggest threats in most conflicts these days, but particularly in deterring the Russian military on the ground in Ukraine. So it's just so fascinating that they're doing this amazing work in the shadows and doing it in a way that is kind of at the tip of the spear of, Ukraine's defense and fighting back. So just so fascinating. And, it feels like in telling these stories, we're really writing the books of history and telling these incredible legends that one day we'll look back on and think, wow, I can't believe that was real. It almost defies fiction because it sounds like a book or a movie or some sort of dramatic tale, but it's real. Like these are real women and real people who are doing these amazing things. And it's so interesting to hear too, the role of NATO in supporting Ukraine and in supporting Ukrainian women, because I think most people don't quite understand what those lines of effort look like. We know that there's multiple types of support flowing in and out of Ukraine, whether it be, tangible support through resources or information or helping in a more strategic way. So it's just really fascinating hearing how you're doing that and hearing how it's impacting particularly the lives of women and those members of society whose voices are maybe not as seen or as heard. So thank you so much for sharing that and sharing those incredible stories of things and people who you've witnessed on the ground. What if you could tell the international community anything about the Ukrainian people that you think they may not know? What would you want them to know?
It's about Ukrainians' love to choose their own path and to choose their own destiny, and to decide what is good for them. And it's this love for freedom, and that we have seen. Also there was like the Orange Revolution and the Maidan, and now it's this independent spirit and this eagerness to choose and walk their own path. And it's also wherever I go, and I everywhere see Ukrainian flags. I think I just was last week. I was also back home in Riga, and and also I saw Ukrainians like on streets, because we're hosting so many Ukrainians. So, and they are so proud of being part of Ukraine, of Ukrainian nation. They are proud of their flag. They are proud of their songs. They are proud of their fairy tales, of their cultural heritage, which Russia tries also to erase. And they are proud of their language. And that is this pride. I think that is really what I appreciate the most, and this resilience, this determination to protect and fight for their country and for their language and for their national identity. And that is what I find fascinating, and that is what is so visible. And for example, here in Brussels, also Ukrainians, they organize rallies and they advocate for Ukraine cause. And I think it's as we also as at NATO we say, it's not a charity what we do when we support Ukraine. It's about our common security. It's about our values we represent and the democratic world represents. And it's about contributing and supporting what we find right. And it's just about a nation's self-determination, and about a nation's wish, and in this case, Ukraine to choose a democratic path and to be a sovereign, independent, and democratic country, which is part of the European Union, which is part of NATO, and which can contribute. And which it's also, I always find fascinating when Ukrainians eagerly want to contribute to international peace and international order. And when I was serving in Kosovo, and that was shortly after Crimea's illegal occupation, I met a Ukrainian contingent there, and they were so determined to help while also Crimea's illegal annexation took place. They were also eager to continue to help, to contribute to NATO led also missions and operations, and to help also NATO in Kosovo. And that is what we appreciate very much. And also we learn from Ukrainians a lot as NATO. We also learn from Ukraine's experience in wartime experience and frontline experience, and we look into Ukraine's lessons learned, and we learned. And for example, my area of expertise is communications, and it's also very amazing how Ukraine, how innovative and they are and creative when it comes to countering Russia's disinformation, when it comes to informing the world and also about what is going on in Ukraine. That to tell Ukraine's story and to show what values Ukraine represents and what values it fights for. And that's why this is like strategic communications is area where I learn from Ukrainians.
Yeah, I love that point you made. I think that, when we think about the title of communications, it can sound so broad, but really communication and information is probably one of the most lethal, can be most dangerous threats right now in the world, because information spreads so rapidly because of the nature of the internet and the media. and information and the way that it's communicated can change the way the world sees an issue so fast. And misinformation can dramatically shift, what's going on in the world. And so you're so right that the role that you play at NATO and the work that you're doing from a communication standpoint is changing the world, and it is changing the situation in Ukraine. And it's so important to bring awareness to, why what you're doing is so important and why it's so impactful. And when we were talking about what we would want the world to know about Ukraine, it reminded me of a post you made recently where, something was going on in the city that you were in, and you all had to seek shelter, I think in a train station or a subway station underground, and you found some flowers and took a picture with them, because in that moment of danger, or in that moment of, something, going on that, was, I'm sure, scary or stressful, you found a source of hope and a source of beauty in those flowers. And I think that many countries that have faced occupation and are, fighting for their rights are known for having that hope and finding those symbols in the midst of chaos that bring them hope. And I just thought that picture that you posted was so powerful and such a beautiful representation for who the people of Ukraine are, who they've been for many years fighting for their rights and fighting for their sovereignty. And so I think of hope, and I think of, what you shared in that photo, and it's really, really stuck with me since you posted it. So thank you. I also really love what you said about this not being charity work. A good friend of mine a couple years ago said that she doesn't like the word help, because help sounds like we aren't equals. And looking at things from a service perspective, like serving one another and uplifting one another, serving people who have similar values and uplifting those who are equals, who are aligned in our values. And I think that sometimes when we think about conflict around the world, we can get stuck in this mindset of, why are we helping? What do we have to gain here? But the reality is that we're stronger together and we're equals. And the work that you're doing serving the Ukrainian people is so important in making a more peaceful world and uniting those countries whose values align. So thank you so much for sharing all of that and for the work that you're doing. So my final question for you, and this is a question that we ask all of our listeners or all of our guests, and it's always a difficult one to answer, is if you had to pick one woman in the arena, so one woman who has always inspired you to do what you do, and maybe in this case, serve others, fight for what you believe is right. It could be, a colleague, a mentor, a family member, or maybe even just a woman you've admired from afar who's a leader in your space. Who would you choose?
I would choose Oana Longescu, so a former NATO spokesperson. She's amazing. Yeah, she's a longest serving NATO spokesperson. She just recently retired, but she's very active. So I would really advise, to have a podcast with her, because her career has been amazing and awesome. So that would be my pick. So my choice.
Awesome. Yeah, and she retired, but it sounds like the women that she's inspired, like you, will continue her legacy. So her legacy will still continue on. Well, thank you so much, Vineta, for sharing just the amazing work that you're doing and shedding light on what's actually happening in Ukraine. Like I said, we get stuck behind the news cycle. We see things through sometimes a computer or a phone, and we can become disconnected to the realities of what is actually happening and what people are facing, and how, this is affecting actual lives. And also the amazing individuals like you who are a part of organizations that are helping bring resources, support, and also hope on the ground to people who need it and are reinforcing people who are fighting for what's right and fighting for sovereignty and fighting for freedom. And your insight into what women are doing on the ground is so fascinating. And I think it's a story that is not as known. And I'm really excited for us to get that out there and bring some awareness to the strength and the resilience of Ukrainian women who are turning the tide of the war, contributing to their nation's history, and doing so in the shadows, oftentimes unthanked, oftentimes unseen, just because they know that that's what they're being called to do. And I truly believe that we're writing the history books of what people will look back on one day and what they'll know and what they'll be able to see in the Ukrainian people. And that's just so amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time, dialing in from around the world, and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you, Sarah. My true pleasure. So yeah, thanks a lot for inviting. Take care.
Awesome.
The Women in the Arena podcast is powered by Iron Butterfly Media, a production company committed to honoring the lives of women who have had an unseen and outsized impact on our world. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have a woman who you would like to nominate as a guest, please shoot us a message on our social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe and follow on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next time.